What's up, guys? It is Sam here with John, and today we are going to be talking about real estate as well as we want to get an update on what's going on with Lending Club for John. And if you want to stay tuned for that, it's coming up in a minute. But if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, you had better be pressing that like button. All right, John. So what don't forget, this is correct. You should listen to John. He knows what he's talking about.
What's up, Sam? How's it going? Congratulations on your Tesla play, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very successful. I should have pulled the numbers up here, but I'm up 30 something percent over the last year on my portfolio in Robinhood.
So what are you, like 10 millionaire now?
You mean 10,000 there? I think I have like seven grand in there. But did you listen to that solar announcement that they had the other day?
I was just reading something about it today. I saw that they're looking to up their installs 1,000 a week, beginning something like that. That's crazy.
Correct. And if you look at the average ASPs of a roof and solar, I think it's around 30,000.
ASP?
Like average selling price.
Okay.
Because the solar roof is supposed to come in at lower than the cost of a new roof and solar combined. So
Wait, so what's the business model exactly? I love Tesla. They have just this, and then they come in and they install it, and then just a buy. Because I've seen some other business models where they sort of, you tell someone, okay, you can lease the space on my roof, and then come and install it, and they split the revenue with you. This is different, right?
So this is, I think that's a good question because it's basically a roof and solar panels combined. So you don't, traditionally solar panels go on top of the roof. This is actually one and the same. So it's got a completely different aesthetic, 100%.
Is this the result of the long-term testing that they've been doing over the last couple of years? Investors have been a little bit annoyed at the slow pace of rollout because they said, well, we want to make sure we get it right. We want to do all the long-term testing. And of course, that takes a long time.
And it's exactly right. So Elon actually touched on this on the announcement the other day that the reason that they had to slow the growth so much was because the Model 3 ramp, they just didn't have the capital to do it. So now that they've had the capital, if you look, they're free. I think they're free cash flow positive. But
and they finally made earnings. I mean, that's finally shocked everybody.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like 40 cents a share loss, and then they ended up with what, $1.50 profit.
Correct, exactly. That was nice. I looked at my account and I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. But let's try to get back here. So in real estate is another way of obviously investing. Do you? I just want to cover like overarching our backgrounds and then maybe touch on. I want to talk about the returns of real estate.
Okay.
Do you have any real estate investments now?
I used to. I love real estate. First of all, if you can get involved in it. I like to invest indirectly. I invest in REITs, REITs, real estate investment trusts, and real vanilla versions of that. I have Vanguard mutual funds, real estate, and there's some other big ones. You can buy it as an ETF. I bought it as a mutual fund. I love them. I believe they have to spend 90% of their earnings back to the investors as dividends by law. So it's just a giant cash generating machine. It's great.
Have you had pretty good returns on the REITs that you've invested in?
I think the average was like 5% a year
for the dividend.
The capital, but if you include the dividends, I mean, it was up like 12 or 13% a year, something crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you get to buy more shares of it too, so you get that compounding effect.
I just set myself on that, buying more shares.
Okay, and what real quick sidetrack? What brokerage are you using? You use multiple different brokers? I use multiple different brokers.
I have in the past. I still have open accounts, but right now I just do everything pretty much through Vanguard.
Okay.
One-stop shop, and when I want to do individual stocks, when I kind of get that, that little itch where I want to play the market a little bit, I'll use Ameritrade. I like their service. They're a good company.
Do you keep? I keep money with Robinhood and Charles Schwab. but the amount I keep with Robinhood is the taxable account, and then the 401k is with Charles Schwab. So I don't really do any investing in there, other than just the passive, like out of it coming out of my portfolio. So I do probably have a tiny bit of exposure to real estate through the companies I invest in that own real estate, but nothing directly when it comes to like REITs or anything like that. Why didn't
Rich, last time I saw it was just the generic REIT you can buy across all the different spectrums. They're paying like 3 or 4% dividends, and that's just the bottom basement. You know, if you're looking for out there for more shareholder value, I mean, you got 5-6%, and any market return you get on top of that is just a bonus. So it's a great play to be in. I've always been a little scared to buy real estate directly, but I know you've done some of that before.
And that's actually perfect because I think that is ridiculous. We're talking about some of the returns here. By the way, none of this is investing advice. You shouldn't do anything that we talk about in this video, nor do we pretend that we know what we're talking about. Do your own fucking research.
Friends and family, I kind of know people with the public eye.
Yes. So in real estate, which is kind of interesting, you had mentioned, you know, a good yield, right, would be on your money, say in the 5%, 6% would be fucking crazy, right? For a dividend yield.
Anything you're getting on top of your capital, it's just extra money.
So I just wanted to run through a super interesting example. So say you were to like acquire $1 million worth of real estate with $250,000, right? You put 25% down because you're investing in 4 properties and you're putting 25% down. It's $250. But the interesting thing about it is the return on real estate is around 4% annually. But we're just going to say 3% to be conservative. So we're going to say you get a 3% yield on your $1 million portfolio. That's 30 grand, right? So you're getting 30 grand every year for a $250,000 investment. Now I don't know what that comes out to be, but I know it's way higher than it's double digits right there. And that 30,000 is probably taxed at a very low rate or not taxed at all.
That's 12%.
Right? So like that's not. I mean, when I'm getting, like, I have that property in Florida, but you can get into some of these properties for fucking like less than 5% down.
So if someone's investing, is this an investment property? You're going to be renting out the units? How does this work? Buying this $1 million property, is it 4 units individually? You're going to end up being a landlord. What's your goal in the beginning?
So I personally just want to get as much real estate as possible. So think about that same example, right? We're shooting for, like, I can get much higher yields on real estate for myself on my cash. So say we're going, I get to 10 million. So my objective is to get just as much real estate as possible. And you have to, if you're not completely incompetent, you're going to factor in your maintenance cost and your property manager cost, and you can put in a fudge factor to take into effect here, right? But say your yield's only 3%, and I can get higher yield, and the yield tends to go up over time because you have fixed cost, right? Your debt service, and yes, you have to pay your maintenance people probably more over time, but rents tend to outpace that, and the variable cost is a smaller portion of the total cost. So your yield actually goes up over time, and that because commercial properties are priced not based upon like the desire by an individual to purchase one like a single family home, but based upon the cash flow you could make from the property. You can make this giant amount of equity. You can get this ridiculous return. Now, say if that was 4 properties, right? If you bought 4 like duplexes or something like that for $250 each, and you lived in one, and then you moved out and bought another one. Then you lived in one and you moved out and you bought another. So you put down 5%. Think about taking $50,000 and controlling $1 million worth of real estate.
So you're really talking about taking this equity that you've established and just leveraging it
as much as possible.
You get to basically reap the rewards of someone else's money, using someone else's money, essentially.
And I said as much as possible, but not necessarily as much as possible, because even if you're doing, if you can get a 2-to-1 ratio or something, or 3-to-1, like if you get a 4% return on your money 4 times, and you have a leverage like, and you 4-to-1, 4 times 4 is 16. You're gonna 16% return on your money. Like, these are just stupid numbers, and that doesn't include like somebody else is paying down your debt. Doesn't include the that none of this is probably taxed, or taxed at a very, very minimal amount. And you can go through if you can raise that, say, over 10 years, right? Raise rents by like 3% per year, and that's not that much. So if you have $1,000 in 10 years, that's around 1,300 if you just did simple math on there, right? 3% per year times 10 years, around 30% roughly. So you end up increasing the property value by a huge amount. Then you can do a cash out refinance, you can pull money out, and all these things are just not factored into it. We're just looking at the return, but all these other pieces come into play, and you can basically get all your money back while still owning the property.
So you're not just paying attention to how much you can earn per year, but the long-term play, that the exit strategy, essentially, how you're going to show the next buyer, this is how much money I'm generating, this is how much I need to get out of this property. And so you're saying people don't really factor in that end goal money as well, not just the yearly amount you're earning.
And 100%. And the area that I think that people also don't consider, which especially when you're starting out, has the biggest ROI, is when you take action towards your objectives in life. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the ROI on that is tremendous, because it impacts so many other parts of your life. But just taking action towards an objective that you're trying to achieve, you learn so much and you grow so much through that process.
So you're saying people are just going to get better over time?
100%.
That fudge money, that fudge budget, that just hopefully shrink.
Correct. Correct. Like, there's just ridiculous amounts of money to be. John, what if you could double your return that you're earning on your money right now? Because you could if you have, think about it, if you have a $500,000 or $1 million, you can probably control like 3 times that number, right? So if you have 500 grand, you can probably control a $1.5 million piece of real estate that could generate a very low 3% yield, right? That's 45 grand a year that's probably tax free you can get. I don't know. I get my money back, right? It just seems like a super awesome way of taking care of things. That's like a 10% yield on your money. And that doesn't consider that over that whole year, you paid off part of your equity.
So how do you view buying physical real estate? Where do you start? You say, I want to look at a certain part of the country, I want to buy something where I'm nearby, or I can take care of it. How do you start that process?
When I started, I actually didn't have any fucking clue. I like kind of paid attention to it, and I'm a little bit more analytical, so I like thought I knew what I was doing, but I really had no idea what I was doing. And then I started actually running the numbers on them, so now I feel pretty comfortable running the numbers on like a single family or something up to like a 4-unit. But I think I would like to try to do more commercial, because that's going to force me to learn more. And I think anytime that you put yourself in a situation where you need to grow to make something successful, like buying a 10-unit or 15-unit next year, like I'll have to get better. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure how that will play out.
Do you want just like a small strip mall? Like what's an entry level for buying commercial?
I'm thinking maybe 200, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking of $1 million complex. I'd like to get 10 plus units.
Okay. And this is used for what? What is the building?
So I want to be able to have this as apartment complexes, and preferably like something where there's equity in it, meaning we can go through and like add, if there's say 10 units in there, and you could put in $1,500 per unit, $4,000 per unit, whatever it comes out to be, and you jump rents by like $50 or $100 on average. That adds so much equity that if it takes 36 months to do that, if you take the capitalization rate of say like a 6% cap rate, and you say you had 10 units, right, and you got $100 more on each unit. So 100 times 10 is $1,000 a month times 12 months at a 6% cap rate. Is that right? Or is that no? That's wrong, isn't it? $100 per 12. So it's $1,200 a month, right? Or $1,000 a month times 12 months. Okay, so $12,000 a year at a 6% cap rate. You just added $200,000 of equity. Now, if you could
explain what a cap rate is for those people that don't know.
it's basically the return you can get on your money. That's like what a lot of times they'll relate a cap rate to the location of a property, like an A through D type situation, and also they'll rate the tenants like in similar accord. Not only is the property say a 2010 to 2020 property, like in terms of when it was built, or 2019, but it's also in a specific location that is also an A location or a B location, depending on that. And a lot of times the cap rates in those, if you factor in some of these things, will be similar. So if you went through and say you buy a 10 unit, takes you 24 months to go through and get rents up about $100 per unit, and then you added basically $12,000 to your income, right? So it's $1 million property. So now you're at 30,000, and you're already making a 3% yield, and now you're up at 42,000, right? Because the 30 didn't change. You just added additional income, and the majority of that drops to the bottom line because your maintenance costs are not going to go up because you just repaired a lot of the units. Your property management costs are probably not going to go up by much because they're already taken care of. They're nothing changing. People are just paying more. So that adds $200,000 of equity. Right, so at the end of 24 months, you have $200,000 more of equity plus 2 years worth of equity pay down, which is the amount of the payment every single month that is going towards principal. Right, so say that's only 10 grand you've paid off over 2 years. So now you've got 210 grand, and if you could take out 70% of that, that's like $140,000. So you just got a $140,000 check for not doing dick, and it's not taxed because the title didn't change hands. Think about that, and then you also get your return, your regular $30,000 a year. Like you get cash flow every single month. It just seems like a much better way of getting a higher return, in my opinion. But it does require some more work, obviously.
Yeah.
And a little bit of know-how or whatever. But there's the internet. I think everybody can do this.
Have you done this on a smaller scale? Have you ever taken a 4-unit and done this?
So I'm at closing on a property in about 10 days.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if I told you. It's a 2-family, yeah. It's a 2-family for $157,500. But I'm going to wrap the closing costs. So it'll be $162,000. I can probably fix it up for way under $18,000. Although I might do the all new heating and cooling throughout the whole place, which could be very expensive. But the comps in the area are probably around $230,000. So say over the next 6 months I repair it and I get it up to the quality of a $230,000 property. And then I take 80% of the value of the property out because I do a cash out refinance. So now because I did 80%, my PMI goes away, right? So there's $100 a month that goes away. But my payment goes, what's that?
Tell people what PMI is.
Personal mortgage insurance. So if you have a higher leverage than 80%, you more than likely have to pay PMI or just MI, which would be mortgage insurance. Some people call that.
Okay.
So
I've seen this before at my dad's property when I was managing his finances, and I tell these people this is the easiest trick and sort of the best dangling carrot you can give to someone right away when you're telling them the importance of paying down their debt to certain levels. This is one. It's just you're paying this extra money just because you have so much equity taken out of the house. Put some in there, get up to 80%, and you get rid of that insurance.
And because it's not going anywhere. And I forced it through adding in that value. But the other thing is, not only does it get rid of the PMI because I'm at 80%, but I get all my money back because 80% of 230.
The cash is just going to start rolling into more real estate. Is this the start of the magical stolen real estate empire?
Correct.
Wow. There it is, folks.
So, anyways, if you guys had any comments or thoughts on what we were talking about, I apologize. I did a lot of talking on this time, John.
Oh, that's great. How will Sam be as a landlord? Comments below.
Pretty fucking awesome. If you didn't say awesome, I will delete your comment. Just kidding.
Will evict you.
Yes, you will definitely get evicted if you don't leave a thumbs up as well. Or jump over to Instagram or TikTok and say what's good. Hey, John, real quick on TikTok. TikTok's exploding.
That much, man.
What's that?
I didn't know you loved the Chinese that much.
Bro, TikTok, think about it this way. What's that?
It's the new Vine, isn't it?
But think about when a platform starts, right? They want more users, so they want to do what's right for the users, and people want to see content. So what they end up doing is you share something and then they put it in front of a lot of people, right? But at some point, the company's like, hey, I want to make money, right? And this is Instagram, right? They're like, hey, I want to make money. So now the organic reach plummets, and they're like, if you want to get in front of people, you got to pay us. On TikTok, they haven't got to that point, even though they have over 500 million plus monthly active users. They haven't got there yet. So the amount of exposure I'm getting on TikTok is fucking ridiculous. I had over a... What's that?
Are they public yet? Can you buy them?
Not yet. Not yet. But I had 100...
They're going to file in Hong Kong, I heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of people saying they want to do it in Hong Kong.
What's the parent company's name? Do you remember?
I don't know if it's Tencent, but I think it's one of those big Chinese companies.
I think this could be the only thing that kind of like really puts an impact on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Facebook's such a behemoth.
This is
They
true.
own everything now. Snapchat is, I can't believe they're still around. I don't understand how people are just floating their money for no reason. I don't get it.
What?
I like the platform, I like all the funny faces and stuff, but they don't make any money.
Is Snapchat's revenue growing at pretty substantial clip though, isn't it?
I think so, but they're still losing a lot of money.
Yes, but
I bought that IPO. I lost some money. I got the hell out. And I think I was out like $12.
what is it, like 6?
Right now.
Yeah. It's stupid though. All right. Don't forget to subscribe and peace the fuck out.